Before we dive into this haunting journey, don't forget to drop your name, city, country, and local time in the comments. It helps us connect this universe of listeners. The wind howled like a banshee over the mountain ridge. Nathan's breath caught in his throat as another sheet of freezing rain sliced down the face of the plateau, pelting his suit and reducing visibility to a fogged blur. He was 3 hours off his intended route and 2 days from the nearest drop camp. The guidance drone had lost signal minutes ago, and the cold was clawing past his suit's heating coils. He had no choice. Scrambling along the shale, his HUD blinked warnings, body temp falling, heart rate spiking, barometric pressure plummeting. The storm was gaining. Then, a dark crevice loomed just behind a crag of jagged stone. It wasn't on the map. That didn't matter. He ducked in without hesitation. The moment he crossed the threshold, the wind died. The cave swallowed the sound whole. Water dripped from the edges of his hood. It was darker than pitch, black so deep it felt like gravity. But he was alive. He dropped his pack, peeled off his soaked gloves, and activated the emergency heat rod. A gentle warmth spread from the stone floor, just enough to keep frostbite at bay. His suit's systems slowly recalibrated, internal sensors resetting from survival to rest mode. Nathan exhaled deeply, a plume of mist fading into the air. Then it happened. From the back of the cave, where the shadows were so thick they looked solid, something shifted. Not a wind, not a footstep. A breath, low, wet, predatory. His hand reached for the sidearm on his hip. Before he could speak, a voice emerged, calm, almost polite. "You are my first fresh meal in 3 solar eclipses." Nathan froze. His heart seemed to pause between beats. The voice hadn't come from any calm. It wasn't in his language, but he understood it, clear as thought, as if spoken straight into his mind. He wasn't alone. Nathan's training kicked in. Slowly, smoothly, he drew his sidearm without shifting his body weight. His breathing slowed. His fingers steadied. He scanned the black useless. His suit's night vision flickered with interference. Something in the cave was jamming its sensors. A pause, silence. Then came the sound again. Not a voice this time, a movement. Like something very large was shifting slowly over stone and bone. "I don't want to hurt you," Nathan said aloud, though his voice cracked mid-sentence. He doubted whatever was in here even needed to hear. It already knew he was scared, knew every tremble, every heartbeat. "You misunderstand," came the reply, cool and almost bemused. "I didn't say I would eat you, only that you are the first who smells living." The way it said living made Nathan's skin crawl. This wasn't a simple predator. It had language, intelligence, maybe even patience. Nathan took a shaky step back toward the mouth of the cave. Lightning briefly lit the entrance. Still raining, still death out there. "You'll freeze," the voice whispered. "The storm was drawn by me." He stopped. "Drawn?" Nathan asked. "To pull you in." That sentence did something to Nathan's spine. He felt ice form beneath his skin, as if the storm hadn't followed him in. It hunted him here. The creature moved again, this time closer. Still hidden, still watching. Nathan swallowed hard. "Why?" A pause. "Because I was forgotten," it said. "Because I was buried here long ago. My pod crashed. No rescue came. And over time did its work." Nathan gripped his weapon tighter, trying to find logic. "You're a castaway?" "I was a soldier. Not so different from you. But unlike you, I fought in the dark." A faint hum stirred in Nathan's helmet, unknown frequency. His AI assistant, Helix, whispered a warning. Unknown biosignature within 6 meters. Massive, carbon-based. Heat signature, minimal. Possibly dormant or cold-adapted life form. "Yeah," Nathan muttered. "Tell me something I don't know." Then from the dark, "I know what loneliness tastes like." That line hit Nathan in a way he didn't expect. In a place no weapon could defend, it didn't sound evil now, just empty. "I buried 7 crewmates," the voice continued, "one by one. At first I left messages, then beacons, then screams, a long silence. They said Earth sent its best into space," it whispered. "But we were not your best. We were your forgotten. I watched the stars shift overhead. My species doesn't die quickly. Nathan's sidearm dropped just slightly. "I'm not your enemy," he said. "I know. That's why I spoke." A low rumble sounded, stone shifting. Then came a dim light. A pale green glow blossomed slowly like bioluminescence across the ceiling, and finally, Nathan saw it. Huge, coiled, alien, but not monstrous. More insect than lizard, more serpent than beast. Its eyes were sharp and ancient, but not hateful. Its limbs folded close to a body marked by scars and time. It had been here a long time. "Why now?" Nathan asked. "Why speak today?" The creature tilted its head slowly. "Because you spoke first." The storm had passed hours ago, but its memory lingered in the quiet drip of water through the cracks in the cave. The human sat motionless near the entrance, his gear still soaked, his body still tense, but his mind entirely absorbed by the two small aliens nestled beside him. They had not spoken again, not in words, not in those eerie whispers, but something between them had shifted. They stayed close, not out of fear, but something else. Trust, maybe, or habit. The taller of the two, the one who'd first whispered fresh, now leaned against his arm like a child might against a weary father. The other one had curled near the fire, eyes wide and reflective like glass marbles. He didn't know what they were, not really. But instinct told him they were young, perhaps even orphaned. Their robes were too thin, their feet bare. Not soldiers, not scouts, survivors. He dug into his emergency rations again, this time slower, more deliberate. One of the bars, wrapped in faded foil, was filled with dense, protein-packed meal paste. Ugly stuff, tasted like sawdust with a side of defeat. But when he broke off a corner and offered it again, they took it without hesitation. "You guys are weird," he muttered. "But I guess I'm not exactly normal either." Their heads tilted in unison, watching him speak. They clearly didn't understand the words, but the cadence, the tone, it registered. They mimicked it quietly, tapping their claws against their chests in rhythm. A ritual, a greeting, or just mimicry. Either way, it made him smile. Outside, the sky had cleared, revealing twin moons crawling across the atmosphere like silent sentinels. He stepped out of the cave just long enough to check his surroundings. No movement, no lights, no ships. The region was dead quiet, but that quiet was unnerving. He should have seen something, a patrol, a beacon, even a drone. Something had gone very, very wrong. He crouched beside a moss-covered boulder and tapped into his comms. Static. Then, a flicker. A voice. Garbled. Human. Bravo 6. Evac compromised. Repeat. Evac compromised. Do not engage. Then it cut out. Dead air. He leaned back against the rock and exhaled sharply. Great. That explained the silence. But now the mission had shifted from recon to survival. And now he had more than just himself to worry about. He turned back toward the cave. The smaller cub peeked out at him with wide eyes, clearly afraid to be left alone. He waved it over. It came without hesitation. "I guess I'm not your meal anymore," he said, more to himself than them. They followed him deeper into the cave when the cold night settled in again, and it was there, nestled between stone and silence, that the whispers returned. Not verbal, not spoken, but mental. Faint pulses of emotion flickered at the edge of his consciousness, like memory, but not his own. A crumbling world, a shattered den, screams, then silence, and then firelight, warmth, food. He sat bolt upright. "You're projecting," he whispered. They looked at him, blank, but not unknowing. "You're telepaths." The smaller one tilted its head, then placed a claw gently on his forehead, and the memory poured in. He saw a jungle canopy scorched by plasma fire, saw a pair of alien adults fall in battle, defending the cubs. Then, hidden passageways, stowed on smuggler ships, silent cries and days without light. And now this cave, this moment, this strange warm human with strange food and stranger kindness. He gritted his teeth, overwhelmed by the torrent. "I can't take this all at once. Slow down." The pressure eased, but the impression was clear now. They weren't just strays, they were refugees. Royal? Important. Maybe. But hunted. And he had fed them, sheltered them. That changed everything. Something shifted in the air. A faint buzz, almost inaudible. Not wind, not rain. Engines. Coming fast. He snapped to his feet and grabbed his rifle. The cubs instantly crouched beside him, their eyes glowing faintly. No one should have known they were here, unless... He activated his HUD and scanned the sky. Faint glimmers. Incoming dropships. Small. Tactical. Not human. Looks like someone brought friends, he muttered. He looked down at the cubs. We need to move. They didn't question. They followed. He led them through a narrow tunnel he'd mapped earlier, one that led into the canyon. Rough terrain. Hard to track. As they moved, another whisper brushed his mind, not from the cubs. A new one. Darker. Older. You've touched the air. He stumbled slightly. What? The cubs stopped wide-eyed. They had heard it too. You feed the old blood. You will not leave this world. Then silence. What the hell is going on? He muttered. At the base of the canyon, he found an old relay outpost, long abandoned, but its power core was intact. He hooked in, sending out a wide-band distress beacon on all encrypted channels. Then he looked up, and froze. A figure stood at the cliff's edge above, tall, robed, armored in obsidian. Predator. The real kind. The kind that didn't run. You shelter the devoured. The voice boomed telepathically. You interfere with balance. He raised his rifle. Back off. You are outmatched. Story of my life. The predator leapt. He fired. The shot clipped the edge of the figure's armor, sending sparks flying. The cubs screamed, not in fear, but rage. They surged forward, claws extended, eyes glowing blue. The predator swung a blade, but missed. The cubs moved faster than expected, and his hesitation gave the human time. He fired again. This time, a direct hit. The figure collapsed to one knee, snarling. Impossible. Then more whispers filled the air. Thousands. Not words. Names. The cubs' names. He turned, stunned. The canyon cliffs were now lined with shadows. Dozens of them. Predators. Watching. Waiting. Then a low guttural growl echoed across the rock, and every single one knelt. To the cubs. He lowered his rifle slowly. What in the actual? The robed figure rose again, barely able to stand. You have fed the bloodline. You are no longer prey. The human blinked, then grinned. I guess lunch really does change everything. His breath caught as the last drops of the storm pattered off the stone above. Silence returned, the kind of silence so profound it roared in his ears. Drenched in cold sweat, half naked and weaponless, he stepped outside. The horizon was no longer his own. It shimmered with silver hulls, each brimming with soldiers, energy fields pulsing with anticipation. Behind him, the two alien strays, Taki and Riven, stood flanking his sides. They didn't speak. They didn't run. They looked ahead with something that resembled pride. In the stillness of that moment, the Emperor's flagship descended with mechanical grace, landing just far enough for theatrics. The ramp hissed open. What emerged was not what he expected. Not a warlord, not a tyrant, but a child. Or at least, one who looked like one, small in stature, golden-eyed, with robes made from nebula fabric. It was an emissary, bred not to fight, but to interpret meaning across star systems. Tension thickened like fog. Every camera lens on the fleet beamed down. The entire empire, possibly even humanity, was watching. You, the emissary said, pointing a pale hand at him. You fed the strays. The soldier straightened. Yes, you disarmed yourself. Yes, you shielded them from your own kind's wrath. Another yes, quieter this time. The emissary turned to the 7,000 ships and spoke in a language he couldn't understand, but felt. It was awe, reverence, revelation. He had become a symbol in real time, like a story being carved into living history. He didn't know what mattered more, the meal he had shared, or the sacrifice he had risked to protect it, and somehow that uncertainty became everything. He should have known that a choice made in mercy would ripple out in such unexpected waves. The Imperium's internal communications leaked like vapor. Factions within the fleet debated among themselves. Some called for him to be honored, others saw him as a destabilizing anomaly, proof that humanity could no longer be viewed as simplistic war-hungry creatures. Still, none dared act until the Emperor himself responded. What happened next wasn't a message, it wasn't a diplomatic call, or a sudden ceasefire, it was a disrobing. When the Emperor's silhouette appeared high above, projected across a visual array of 1,000 ships, it didn't bark orders. It removed its robe. A gesture so sacred in their culture, it was akin to shedding divinity in favor of vulnerability. And without hesitation, every captain, soldier, and drone unit on every ship followed suit. A synchronized act of surrender and recognition, of mutual trust. The humans watching aboard satellites and Earth Command were speechless, because it wasn't a war anymore. It was reverence. It was change. And he, this ragged soldier who once just wanted shelter from a storm, was now standing naked in spirit and cloth, elevated by two creatures once branded as rejects. History pivoted. And he was the fulcrum. What makes a legend? Is it the magnitude of action, or the intimacy of intent? He had no medals. No orders, only instinct and hunger, and two hungry aliens who looked too young to survive. But in feeding them, he rewrote the war code of an empire. Within days, Imperium artists sculpted murals of the unarmored one, the human who stripped, the protector of strays. Taki and Riven, they stood behind him as advisors now, not pets, not curiosities, but dignitaries. They never left his side. Their bond, unspoken and wild, challenged all diplomatic norms. The Imperium voted, not unanimously, but overwhelmingly. Humans were no longer conflict species. They were kin. The emissary asked him once more, in private, what his name was. He told them. But the Imperium never used it. To them he would always be the one who shared. And in that title, more powerful than armies, lay the most primal of truths. Humanity doesn't conquer with strength. It conquers with heart. And now the screen fades. Dear viewer, if this moment moved you, if the image of a soldier feeding the unknown speaks louder than battle cries, then this is your story too. Humanity has always been more than the war. It's been about the choice to protect, to offer, and to stand in defense of the smallest, strangest, and most unloved among us. If you felt that spark, drop your name, your city, and your time in the comments. We want to know where our protectors are watching from. The galaxy just got a little more human, thanks to people like you.